Let's talk to Captain Harold, the H. Peacock. And he's going to tell us a bit more about history, about the heroes of the Crimean War. G'day, Harold.
Yes, good morning, Danny. And I will be talking about captains, of course. There are a few of them that were at the Crimean War and were here in Ipswich too.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just take it away, mate?
Yeah, well, look, as you know, the Crimean War was in the Ukraine and was fought against Russia in 1853 to 1856.
Wow.
And for most of us, it was immortalised by Tennyson in his poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade. Now, the veterans of the war dispersed around the world, and I'll tell you about 5 of them who came here to Ipswich. First, there was William Bryant. Now, he lived out at Churchill. When he died in 1936, aged 97,
Wow.
he was buried in the Ipswich Cemetery, and the most incredible story came out.
What?
It was reported that he served in 6 wars and was Ipswich's only recipient of the Victoria Cross.
Wow.
Now, Bryant served with the British Navy in the Crimean War, the Indian Mutiny, the Second Opium War in China, insurrections in Jamaica, Maori Wars in New Zealand, and fought on both sides in the American Civil War.
He was a very lucky man.
Well, it was. And in fact, it was reported that it was in China where Bryant was awarded the VC. When he climbed the walls of a Chinese fort, he was greeted by the point of a Chinaman's bayonet. He quickly deflected the thrust with a cutlass he had in his right hand and a revolver he had in the other, shot his opponent. He then saved the lives of 2 men who were with him and was the first to leap over the wall. His story seems just too good to be true, and unfortunately, Danny, it is. Now, some of Bryant's story might be based on fact, but his Victoria Cross, well, that just didn't happen. But the next question...
But he got the VC, didn't he?
No, he didn't. There's no record of it. But it was reported in the Queensland Times, and it was even repeated as recently as 2011 by the Courier Mail. It just didn't happen.
It didn't flame and happen. Get on your facts. This is Fact Radio. That's why we got Harold on.
That's right, and that's what I want to tell you now about Sergeant Michael Kiernan. Now, he lived in Ipswich for many years before selecting land up at Stanley River. He was a sergeant in the historic 88th Regiment, Connaught Rangers. He was severely wounded during both the Crimean War and the Indian Mutiny. Now, when Sergeant Kiernan died in 1882, he left a widow and 11 children.
He was on the nest every night.
His story was only reported thanks to his former commander of the Connaught Rangers, Captain Robert Werner. Now, Captain Werner also lived in the district. Now, in Crimea, the captain and several of his men were indeed recommended for the Victoria Cross, but he was eventually decorated with a medal from the Ottoman Empire. Now, his medals were always displayed in his house at Wivenhoe, and for many years, the captain was an Ipswich cricketer and a patron of what was then the Ipswich Navy and Army Veterans Association, which today is the RSL. He passed away just in 1920. Now, the
and you know, mate, there's a street called Werner Avenue near South Rugby Club at Yeronga, probably named after him.
Yeah, look, it probably is, because he was really well known, as was the 4th veteran of the Crimean War. I'll tell you about. His name was Private Henry Bloom of the 93rd Southern Highlanders. He was wounded in action no less than 4 times. He was lucky.
He was lucky, but sort of unlucky.
Yeah, but he was lucky because he did come to Ipswich, because the last wound he got was a gash to his head that remained unhealed until Ipswich's own Dr. Dorsey sewed it up nearly a year later. And you remember Dr. Dorsey and his ducks I've told you about?
Unbelievable. Go on.
Anyway, Private Bloom worked everywhere from Ipswich to Gundawindi and finally settled at Halidon. He proudly wore his Crimean medal until the day he died in 1914. Now, all those 4 veterans I've told you about, they came to Ipswich after they served in the Crimean War. But there's one who actually went there from Ipswich. His name is Captain Francis Vignoles. He had a sheep run out west and spent a lot of his time here in the old North Australian Jockey Club in South Street. Now, the captain arrived in Australia in 1835 with a 28th North Gloucestershire Regiment. He came to the Ipswich district and was appointed magistrate up at Drayton. In 1854, he was recalled to his regiment to go fight the Crimean War. Afterwards, he came back here, and in 1860, he ran unsuccessfully for the first Queensland Parliament. He kept his sheep run out at Western Creek and even had a male coach held up there by a bushranger.
Wow.
But Danny, neither Ipswich nor bushrangers could compare to when he and these other Ipswich veterans boldly faced the Russian guns at the Crimea. So look, these are local heroes who should be remembered now, Danny, because of what's going on in Europe today. The Crimea, that's part of the Ukraine. So it's part of living history. Yeah. And these 5 guys are part of Ipswich.
And why aren't people getting onto this stuff? You know, we forget too easily of some of the bravery of some of our people as long in the tooth. It's so sad, and you're bringing it back, and you've named them, and, you know, it's always good. You are the best storyteller in Australia.
Oh, thank you, Danny. That's very kind of you.
If not Ipswich. 8:16. Now, you can see the story on historyouthere.com, and get online, get on Facebook, westbramaradio.com.au, and tell us what you think of the history section, because I think the Mayor of Ipswich should get you to put these stories out each week and put a book together, because it's so interesting. And as you said,
I think it's a great idea, Danny. In fact, you gave out the phone number before. People should be ringing you right now to tell them how good these stories are and what else they want to hear about.
And the number is 30 60 0458. 30 60 0458. Get on the phone and tell us what you think of Harold the H. Peacock on West Bremer Radio 817.